What's up, YouTube? One Wildcrafter here, Jeremy. We're indoors today, hope you don't mind, but we are going to talk about a galvanized trash can as a storage vessel for your dry goods. So some of you might be interested in storing dry goods or other materials for long-term storage, and I think that galvanized trash cans are an ideal storage container to do that. They're rodent proof, they are rain proof because they'll shed the rain off the sides. The downfall is that they are not necessarily moisture proof, so you might want to take measures to make sure that they're not being affected by humidity. Anyways, I was in Princess Auto recently. They have a really good price on these 75 liter trash cans. I also saw that they have a smaller one, which is like a 40 something. I'll pop up a picture, which I thought might be a little more suitable if you have to lift them and move them around and you don't want them to be too heavy, or if you've got a shelving solution to storing your dry goods, but you want them to be in rodent proof containers. Okay, so let's have a little closer look at this can. Okay, there's different models. The one that I picked up happens to not have a locking lid on it. It's just like a tension fit. But for our purposes, I think that's going to be fine. This one is 75 liters. Okay, so that could store 75 kilograms of water. It can fit a lot of stuff. At my parents' place, we dump all of our black oilseed sunflower in here to keep the squirrels out, and then we scoop it out and use it for filling bird feeders, and they work fantastic for that. Now, in that case, our oilseed sunflower would be touching the galvanized siding of the can, and we don't worry about it for the birds. And I don't think they worry about it either. They've got barred owls, for example, to worry about in our yard. But if you're storing dry goods in here, things like salt could corrode the edges. If you have cans in here, they could be having a small electrical interaction with the edges, which can cause rusting. So we're going to look at lining this can for storage, and what we're going to do is use this foil bubble wrap. We're going to cut a piece to go inside the bottom. We're going to cut a piece to wrap around the inside, and that's going to be our liner. This is a little bit thick, so what that means is it's going to reduce our interior volume slightly, but there's an advantage to that to prevent salt interactions or anything like that, so it's going to be worthwhile. Another option would be to use something like this floor foam. So I picked this up recently. I'm going to say it's not quite 4 feet by 8 feet, but it was kind of close to that size, and then I cut it to fit this space in my kitchen. But you can see that it is a 1/4 inch thick, and it's foamy, expandable, or pressable, so it's going to hold a little bit of an airspace, and that's an inert material, so that's going to be a good liner, a non-conducting material, I should say. Now we're going to avoid going down the rabbit hole here, but if you go online and you start reading about Faraday cages to store your electronics, some people will suggest using one of these galvanized trash containers. Pardon me while I back the camera a bit. These galvanized containers, and then lining them with a non-conducting material so that your electronics don't make contact with the metal itself. So in that case, that kind of a foam would probably be the ideal solution. I don't know anything about Faraday cages, but it did come up when I was looking into trash cans for dry goods storage, and you'll probably find the same thing if you're doing some research as well. Alright, we want to cut a piece for the bottom, and there's a couple of different ways that we could do that. So we could measure the inside diameter, which is 14 3/4 inches. So we could get a little pin and a string, and we could make a circle like that on a piece of our bubble wrap, which would probably be a smart thing to do. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my bubble wrap on the floor, and I'm going to marker a circle around it and then just cut it slightly smaller. This stuff is pretty easy to cut with a pair of scissors, maybe even with your EDC knife. It is just bubble wrap after all. So I'm going to cut off a nice straight edge here, and then cut my circle. Well, what did we say? It was 14 3/4 inches across, and when I made it on the outside, it ended up being 15 1/8. So I'm just going to cut slightly on the inside. So if I cut, what's that work out to? 3/16 on the inside of my line, then I should get the right diameter, right? No, that's wrong. No, that's right. Approximately right. We could always trim it after if it doesn't work. Ta-da! Now I got this funky leftover piece. Maybe I can, it can be part of my 5G blocking helmet. Chest plate. Ooh, it's shapely. Right. I'm back up here. It's like a game of disc golf. Woo! There it is. Oh yeah. Perfect fit. Alright, so now we've got the bottom insulated, and we want to cut the top. Now, how are we going to do this? This is the part where it gets a little bit tricky, because we can't just cut a square to go in here because of the cone shape of the garbage can. So the inside diameter at the top is 16 3/4 inches, where the inside diameter at the bottom is 14 3/4, I believe. So we're going to end up cutting a little bit of a shape. So what's the around distance of our can? Well, if you remember your mathematics, we're going to go, it's closer to 16.5 than 16 3/4. So we're going to go 16.5 times pi, and that should give us the circumference. Hey Google, what is 16.5 times pi?
The answer is approximately 51.836279.
51.8 inches. Thank you, Google. Okay. 51.8. 51.8. Get that all flattened out. I'm going to throw my marker. 51.8. So we're just going to cut it a little bit shy of 52. And because of the pattern on this, we're just going to follow a line and the bubbles. Bingo. Now, our long edge, which is going to fit inside the top, should be 16.5 in diameter, but the bottom has to be smaller. So we're going to end up cutting angled lines on our two end pieces so that this bottom makes a diameter of 14.5 inches. What is 14 3/4 inches times pi?
The answer is approximately 46.338 inches.
Thank you. 46.3 inches. So, the difference between 46.3 inches and 51.8 inches is about close to 5.5 inches. So we want to take 5.5 inches off both ends equally, so 5.5 inches is going to be 2 3/4 inches coming off this bottom end. 2 3/4. Make a little mark there. And off this bottom end, 2 3/4. Now, for this to fit properly, we're going to get a straight edge and we're going to mark a line from that 2 3/4 back up to this corner, and we are going to cut off that little triangle. What's funny is cutting a line across these foil bubbles is kind of like trying to find your way through a house of mirrors. It's very deceiving. Now this isn't going to be an exact fit, but now we have a 14.5 inch circumference at the bottom and a 16.5 inch circumference at the top. And with our bottom piece, and here's our and with our top piece. Now it's close, it's very close, and it's not an exact match. So it doesn't want to quite open up all the way. But it's pretty good. So the other way to do this would be to put in your piece and then trim it to match. Now the foil bubble wrap that I'm using is slightly taller than the can, so I'm also going to have to trim around the edge with the scissors. We'll get a piece of tape and tape this seam. Right. Now, what do we want to store in our new upgraded Galvalume trash can? I, for example, have a lot of dry goods that I bought in the first wave of the COVID pandemic. So I'm stocked up on rice, dry beans, dried soup mix, things like that I thought, if I needed to, I can eat them on their own, or they would really help to fill out a meal of wild food. And there are all kinds of things that I don't need to have them all on hand right there in the shelves. Some of them are bulky, and so I'm going to fill this up with a bunch of those kinds of dry goods. We'll see how much we can get in here, and then whenever I need stuff, it's here and accessible for me. Another handy thing about this is if you're using multiples, make sure you put good labels on it so you know what's in each one. You don't have to keep opening every one in turn. You also can make a little dolly, so this would sit on top of your dolly, and then you can wheel them around. So if you've got some in behind each other, instead of dragging them across your floor every time, you can just wheel them in and out. Or if you have to move them around your house, you can set them on the dolly and then wheel them to the kitchen, for example, or wherever you need them. That would be handy too. When I was looking at these at Princess Auto, I noticed they also have a very good selection of casters. And it wouldn't take more than a circle of 3/4 inch plywood and 4 casters underneath, and you would be ready to roll. Pun intended. Alright, let's see. I have an unopened bag of rice. Set that right down in the bottom. Look, they even got them at half price. Black turtle beans. Black beans. More black beans, half price. Can't go wrong. They never go off. What else do we want to put in there? Large flake oats. Good for making trail mixes, breakfasts, energy bars. Oh, they got a little bit of air in them, so I don't want to put anything too heavy on top of those guys. Let's put in... This is one of the bags of rice that I will reach in here and take from. And I also have wild rice. Good. So now I can access my rice and my wild rice. And I still have room for my granola. And maybe if I really wanted to max it out, I could get some pasta in there. Or, you know, for a small investment, you could set up a bunch of these, and you could have one could be like all granola and dried fruits. You could have one that's all pasta, one that's all rice, one that's all corn, or whatever it is that you like to stock up on that you eat. Don't go and buy something that you won't eat. So this is like a long-term storage solution, but I eat all these things on a weekly basis. So the other thing I could do is have another one of these and just keep rotating. So I could eat from this one when it's empty. I could start to eat from the second one, and then this one could be the one that gets refilled and set aside. There's a lot of calories in this bucket. It's pretty heavy, and I don't have to worry about the mice. And as long as I store it where the temperature doesn't fluctuate too much, I also don't have to worry about the humidity, especially because most of the things in here are in their own packages anyway.